Hello, everybody. Juan Pablo. Oh my god, first time here. God bless by the algorithm. It's awesome to have you here. Welcome. How does this work? Good question. So, we're gonna get started in just a couple of minutes here. But basically, how this works in like really condensed form is that every week, people have the ability to tag me in their work, and then I'll just go through it and give feedback on during this entire session. So that's what we'll be doing today. Oh, hello, George. Oh, thank you so much for subscribing as well. I appreciate that. That is awesome. Hello, Liz. Hello, Sulan. Sorry for not getting you in, Plague. So I tried to do something pretty smart. Let me switch over to my camera as well, because I'm a little bit more serviceable today. I don't know what I mean by that, but yeah, I was sick. Well, I still am a little bit sick, but yeah, I'm feeling pretty good right now. So yeah, so let's kick the show off. But yeah, what was I saying? Completely forgot. Oh yeah, so I'm sorry for not getting you in, Plague. The way that I've set it up now is that at a certain time, so like an hour ago, I have like an automated system that basically grabs all the images that I need to have a look at. And then after that, I'm not going to squeeze anyone in, because basically before the stream, all I'm doing is I am just doing the setup of the stream, right? So that is me just going in, adding in all the images, getting a lot of context, like seeing how to prepare for the stream, all that kind of stuff, and trying to squeeze in people last minute is annoying. Let's just say that straight up. And it is stressful to do the same thing as well, especially if you're like me and you screw up your entire streaming setup just before you go live. So that's also great. Love that. Ugh. But yeah, I hope everyone is doing well. It's good to see everybody here. Hello, Omar. Hello, Dennis, Anton, Justin. Got it. No worries. My fault. No problem. I mean, we'll be back next week. Oh, actually, we have something coming up next week. So next week, I will not be running Whip Wednesday, because we're actually gonna have the first Whip Wednesday takeover. And the first Whip Wednesday takeover is gonna be hosted by Adam Denker, who is also like a mentor for the website as well. So Adam has been a part of the community for such a long time. He's currently working at DICE as an environment artist, and he will be taking over Whip Wednesday next week. However, because this is the first time that we're doing something like that, it's going to be live only on Discord. So we'll still give you like notes and all that kind of stuff, but it's going to be only to Discord and not running on YouTube for this 1 week. It's sort of like a thing that we're kind of trying out to see if there's like enough people that we can kind of that are interested in like changing up the format a little bit, right? And then maybe we can do something really cool with the format going forward. Hello, Thomas. Good to see you here. Hello, Olaf. How can I join the Discord? There is a link in the description down below. And I think big question mark. I've been setting up some bots and all that kind of stuff today, so I hope that we get like some automated images at a certain point as well. Hopefully. Again, that should have been set up, but I've got no clue if that's going to work or not. We'll see. We'll find out together. But the link in the description still works. Not like it did yesterday. Cool. How has everyone's day been? Let's start there. Hello, Adam. Hello, Sia. Good to see you both. Hope you're both doing well. I've got some more frames in the background as well. You can't see it. God damn it. Don't worry, this is not on you. Let me just double check if it's in the description, you know. I only see LinkedIn and ArtStation. Eh? Am I just completely losing it? Like the whole stream has gone off rails. Let me see. So if I go to... how do I open this? Hearing my own voice. Oh, you are right. But down below, like below that one, it says follow Beyond Extend, and it actually has a link to our website as well. So feel free to click on that one too. Let's actually have a look. So if we go in and edit, and then... I see. Let me just do some quick last minute edits. There we go. There we go. Hello, Nenmayo. Good to see you here. Happy to have you join us for today. We're just getting warmed up for a little bit, so curious how everyone's day has been. Dinan is coming in as well. Hello, Dinan. Good to see you here. And then Darkon's day has been freaking amazing. That is awesome. Great to hear that. My day has actually been pretty good as well. I've been doing a lot of, what would you call it, like back-end work, I'll say. It's just like little stuff that I do when I'm not feeling like doing like any big things. So I'm kind of, as you all know, like I'm still working like on a massive list to get like the book sort of in order. And I think the last update that I gave was like, I'm like 25% done, but I'm getting closer to the 50% mark now. And that basically consists of me going through like a whole bunch of tips that I've written over the past 5 years. And I'm trying to condense them down, make them more readable, and then have them go into like a book format as well. Yeah, that's gonna be cool to see. But yeah, I'm making good progress on it. I'm pretty happy with it so far. I feel like the stream today is just like freaking weird. Because my stats are not... It's saying that there's only 3 people watching, but I know that there's more of you, for sure. Something weird is happening here. Okay. Oh. What? I'm... Thank you so much for the sub, Dinan. I appreciate it. So, yeah, that's what I noticed as well. Like, what the hell is going on? Like, I'm doing like a double stream. How the hell have I managed this? Oh my god. Okay. Let's just shut that other one down then. Damn it. This is so typical. Like, there's only one person that can really manage that, and that's me, I feel. Okay, so... we're gonna shut that down. Stuff might crash, and if it crashes, we'll try and fix it. You know? So, we'll see how that goes. Okay. That one is done. Cool. Oh god, this is scary. That's why I didn't see it on the chat first. Oh, now it's picking up like everyone. Okay. I'm so sorry. Godspeed. Yeah, I've already pressed the button, so if you can still hear me, we're good. YouTube is just like really confused with my actions, I think, today. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I just want to make sure that we're still going here. It looks like we are. Looks like we are. Okay, cool. Loading. I'm not going to worry about that. That's all good. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for the subs, people. I appreciate that. Who was the last one? Push the fish. Thank you so much for subbing as well. I appreciate it. Hey, Joe. How's it going? Good to see you here. Lovely to see everyone here. Justin is asking me if Adam is doing next week with Wednesday, does that mean the rest of the mentoring team will appear? So that is something that we have talked about with the other mentors as well. And it's something that we're kind of looking at on like an individual basis. So we're not like ruling anything out, but it's up to the individual mentors of them like appearing. I think my idea is that if we turn like Whip Wednesday, right, which is then no longer gonna be Whip Wednesday, but if we have the capacity of people just wanting to have like a lot of feedback, which quite honestly we're getting pretty close to that because my sessions are getting like pretty long. So it would be interesting if we get to a certain cutoff point, let's say 2 hours or something like that, right? So that if we can then like add more people into the list, into the mix, that they can take over like where I had to stop, not on the same day, but maybe the day after or something like that, right? Could be pretty cool. I think we're all open. We're all open to seeing what that will bring in the future. It's a good question though. With Wednesdays are packed with lots of feedback already. Hope you get some helpers, Tim. Oh yeah, like I don't think the issue is necessarily with like getting people to help, right? Because Adam was like really keen to jump in for the longest time already. So it's like really cool that we kind of found like a spot where we found the time and like we got together a little bit. Because he's really keen on doing it, and I'm really excited to see like the session that's going to be next week. But yeah. I don't really mind doing the long sessions, but if it kind of keeps growing steadily and steadily, we're at a certain point, like let's say we're at 50 people, it's just going to be undoable to do it in like a single session, and we have to spread it out into multiples anyway. I mean, 50 would be like overkill. I think the most that we had was like 25 people on one live stream or something like that. Joe Johnson is doing good. I plan on posting my environment tomorrow, just grabbing the last few breakdowns. Oh, shit. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that, Joe. That's going to be cool to see that online. It's fine. I'm sure you can do 50 people easy. So, if I wasn't so good at just like yapping the entire time, maybe I could, you know? But I feel like whenever I say that I'm going to do like a couple of short ones, I just like overextend by giving so much context that I'm just talking too much, you know? Because I'm really good at just like talking too much by the sounds of it. There's a lot of streams. There's a lot of streams where I think that I'm like doing pretty good, you know? Like internally, I feel like pretty confident, pretty quick. Like I feel like the pace has been like really quick. And then I look at the time and it's already 2 hours and there's still like 10 people on the board. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, yeah, sometimes I'm just completely off. But it is fun though, so. I just saw the message in the mentorship chat. Some people will never be seen. 50 would be hell. Yeah, honestly, if let's say like next week, well, not next week, but like the week after, I would have to look at 50 people's for work. I will just have to condense it down to like one question and one image per person or something like that. Where it's just like, hey, we're just gonna focus on this one image, just gonna bash it out 5 minutes and then just move on to the next one. 5 to 10 minutes max, you know? That would kind of kill the vibe, you know? Because sometimes what I really honestly do enjoy doing is giving feedback and then people ask questions in the meantime and then kind of riffing off those questions too, right? So that kind of leads me to what we're going to be doing today, right? So we're going to be looking at Whip Wednesday. We're going to be looking at some people's work, but also in the meantime, feel free to ask any questions and then we'll kind of weave that into the structure of the whole thing, right? Like I said, I love answering questions. So if you have any questions about game development, how to get in it, like career advice or whatever you come up with, feel free to ask that in the meantime as well. Oh, and the last thing that I wanted to say about the setup and like the room here is that I got like a couple more things. So you see those top 3 like frames up there. They're the games that I worked on. I still need to fill out a couple ones, and I kind of want to. I had this idea of the stuff that is basically unannounced, got cancelled, or anything like that. I would just like make a frame that has like a question mark or something like that in it. That would be interesting. And then I have just like some achievements and like some awards like below that as well. And then over here, we have like the new frames that I showed off like last time as well. So yeah, I just need to, oh God, I dread this so hard, but like all the team challenge, like projects that I've hanged up on the wall, I basically want to move them all closer into the corner and make it like just one long section that covers the whole wall instead. But yeah, that's going to be annoying. The question marks would be hilarious. Yeah, hilarious, and also like, I don't know, like, it would be cool. Like, honestly, just like I like the idea of it, but it's also painful, right? Because I think in total, I have spent, let's see, so 8 years in the industry right now, right? Well, give or take, because I kind of had a dip with like Beyond Extent doing that full time and all that kind of stuff, right? But besides that, let's say 8 years. From those 8 years, I spent 3 years of that working on something that will never see the light of day. Which, that just by itself, like if you then were to like ratio that's actually crazy to think about. And I'm not too keen on thinking about it that way. But hey. Hello Guillaume. Welcome. Let's see. Do I need to be a member to join the Discord? Yes, you need to be. Yeah. The reason why is because we do offer a lot of value back, right? Like me sitting here giving you like dedicated feedback and all that kind of stuff, like that is because I've gotten so much support from people around me that makes this possible, right? And also you get like basically a whole book. Like I'm not even kidding you, like a 250 pages book, like that's included in your membership as well, that you just get on top of it. It is a PDF, so not like an actual physical book, but you do get like a PDF. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff too. Like I chill out like a lot in the voice chat as well, and a lot of people ask me questions there too. Let's see. I'm gonna switch it on over to like the overpaint screen, right? So let's get that going already. I gotta keep into account where like the chat is now. Physical version of the handbook when? So that was the thing that I was talking about in the beginning. I'm actually working on that now, and like when it comes to like the text, I'm currently doing like a quick text correction and all that kind of stuff, and I'm 50% of the way through. But that's just one step of like the steps that I want to take after this, right? So if I'm gonna be really transparent, I'm 50% of the way through just like spell checking the whole thing. What I want to do then is I want to print it out like just really quickly in black and white, and then go through it and sit through it like manually to see which pages are still relevant and which pages need to be cut. Do a whole like self-editing pass on it in that form, and like really go through all of it with like a fine-tooth comb. And then I need to do like all the images still, right? Because the design has changed like a little bit, which means that a lot of the stuff, like silly old me, like I embedded like a lot of the text into the images itself, which means that I need to go back into like all the Photoshop files, like re-edit them, like crop them different ways and all that kind of stuff, which is going to be painful. But I'm hoping, oh God, would I be so brave and bold to set a deadline on that? I don't think so. It's going to take a while though. It's going to take a while. I guarantee you that. Because yeah, that was honestly most of the stuff that I was doing today was just looking at a bunch of text and trying to clean it up, right? Just doing a whole bunch of that today. We'll be patient. I think it's gonna be good though. Like I'm excited for it. Like seeing that in like the physical form, it's gonna be freaking awesome. Let's see. Tuesdays in a row, crazy? Yeah. Yeah, in the beginning of the month, it's always 2 days because I got like portfolio review and like Whip Wednesday, right? But clearly a success to come. I think so. Like, honestly, I don't really mind it not being like a commercial success or something like that, right? Like, I'm just keen on having it for myself and being able to share it with like future students that I teach, right? Like that's all I really care about. Omar has been watching the older replays of With Wednesday, so glad to finally find the time to attend one. Oh my God. Did you catch up? Or are you just like skipping? Because that would be crazy. I'm not assuming that you've seen all of them. That would be nuts. Games should never be cancelled, but rather be repurposed if it goes wrong or something. But that might be me being naive in development. It's honestly, it comes down to cost, right? If we had to, because there are genuinely like bad ideas in development, right? That if you take them to like a certain point with a small team, and if they then get tested by like more people and a lot of people find out that it's not really fun or not really engaging to play, I would honestly at that point see like there's like a post-mortem that gets done at that point, right? Like, and they probably see like, okay, if there's something salvageable here, we will do that, but if it's not, then we're just gonna cancel it outright. So I think canceling is like canceling games is like a very normal part of the cycle, even though it's a really painful one, but it kind of needs to be done to some degree as well. There's some crazy ones out there that I can't really see why that didn't happen earlier. For example, Hyenas, right? Where like it was 95% done, or like it was basically shippable, and then Sega was like, nah, we're gonna pull the plug on it. Those things, I'm like, I don't know. Like, that should have been figured out like way earlier. Like if that was not the thing that they wanted to get out, they have seen the product. They have seen the product through like all the stages, because that's what a publisher is going to be hands-on, right? Especially because this was Sega's like biggest project. Like I cannot imagine that they weren't like at least a little bit hands-on. And then at the latest point being like, nah, we changed our mind. That is a wild move. That is a wild move. I know. I can't really watch all of them, but honestly, I probably watched like 1/4 of the total stuff in the background. Oh shit, dude, that's awesome. And also crazy, but thanks. Project Black looked really cool too. Super original style, and seeing them get cancelled felt pretty frustrating. Project Black, which one? Which project was that for again? Which studio? Don't remember that one. Honestly, it feels so sad to say, but like I'm getting lost in the amount of like studio shutdowns and like project cancellations and all that kind of stuff. It's really hard to keep track at this point. Fish Labs. Yeah. Doesn't ring a bell. I might just not have seen it. We talk about a lot of technical things, but what about the collective methodology in long-term projects? I'm not too sure what you mean by that, Kyo. Yeah, Deep Silver Fish Labs. Yeah, I'm just honestly not too sure which one that was. Like the only game Black that I remember was the one that came out on like PlayStation 1, right? That was like really into like, what was it, like guns and Burnout like mixed? It was like a really cool game. Remember that. But like I was saying before, we're gonna dive into a little bit of feedback. Keep the questions coming. Keep the discussion going. So yeah, let's have a look. If you see me looking to my left, that's because I always look at the context that people are posting with, right? So we're gonna start out with Thomas B. Thomas B is working on a castle yard, and they're saying, I'm planning to post it soon. Are there any elements that jump out at you when you look at my scene? And is the composition better? Oh, it's the rule of thirds and all that stuff that we talked about, right? I feel like these two shots haven't really changed, right? Let me have a look. Did I crop them weird or something like that? No, right? Let me actually see. I think the one down here might actually be. So the thing is, it's a weird aspect ratio that I have here, right? It feels like I always want to keep the aspect ratio consistent. I think, did we talk about that last time? Yeah, like a wider aspect ratio of like a 21:9, where if you don't have that consistency, like this is basically like cinematic aspect ratio, right? Because right now what is happening is that you have one of it that's almost square, but it's not really square. And then you have this one here, which is really cinematic, right? Like this is 21:9, and this one is 2, right? Because they match. But then this one, I don't know. It kind of feels weird. Like 4:3, yeah, like old school PCs or something like that, right? I'm not really keen on that. I do like these ones though. Like these ones are pretty good. See, I need to keep track of like where I'm putting stuff on the screen now. These are pretty good. It's just, again, like you have your main focal point, right, is in the center of the screen again. Same with this one. Not that that's necessarily bad, but like we talked about before, right, like the rule of thirds, but you want to have like your focal point here, and then you could have like people like following it like in the back, right? I don't necessarily mind it being in the center either, right? So it's not that it needs to be done in the center, because it seems like you really like this shot. If you do want to keep this shot, then what I would say is move the frame like a little, or like the camera a little bit down, so that the horse's feet, the hooves, are not like cut off. you want to give it like a little bit more space so that we can actually see like the horse in full. There is something, I forgot the name of it now. Tangents. This is a thing. This is a word for like whenever you have like the convergence of a couple of lines. So for example, let's say you have a rock and then like another rock, or like a stalagmite or something like that, and they kind of touch. That feels weird because it gets rid of like the depth of them, and it kind of makes us like, ugh. So the same is happening here as well, where like the hooves, they kind of just touch like the frame of it. So you want to give that like a little bit more space, a little bit more breathing room, so that you give like the subject matter like a little bit more space on the frame, right? Let's see. This is gonna get messy though. Let me actually switch some of these guys around. It's a little bit awkward, but we'll make it work. So let's see. And is the composition better? Like on this one, this is the one that like changed the most, right? I think this is pretty cool. Again, watch out with like the framing of it though. Oh wait, that's probably my fault, right? This time. Yeah. Okay, so this one fits better on the page. Let's actually move this guy up here. Sorry, just moving stuff about here. Right, so this one feels better. This one feels better. I think in this case, really think about like how and what you're trying to make stand out, right? Because now you kind of have this like outdoor light, which is kind of shining like a little bit of light here. But wouldn't it be cooler if you have like natural light coming in like a bit harder, so that like the whole foreground is kind of like lit up? It's kind of focusing on this guy, and then all of these guys in the background, they're more like silhouettes, right? So what that says to me from like a lighting perspective, and also from like a composition perspective, is that the focus is on the main guy, and the rest of them are just like following around, right? But if you think about it in like a deeper sense, you could almost make it as if like the only guy that matters is the guy that's riding in front, and the rest of them is just like they're only silhouettes, like they're part of like the army that doesn't count, even though like they're probably the reason why he's victorious, right? So you could kind of add that lighting to kind of hint at like something deeper that is playing on the screen for you right now. So I would probably think about like maybe lightening this up, and then probably like darkening this down. Let's see if we can do like a quick little thing over here. Right, you would have like the foreground, and like he's standing out a little bit. This is gonna be pretty quick, pretty dirty, but you'll get the point. And then we're gonna add a little bit of contrast in the background here. What the point of that is, this is overdone, right? So it's gonna look way better if you do it, but like we make the guy in the foreground stand out compared to the people in the background, right? So he's the hero, and he's being followed by like this army of just like anonymous men. Right? I should have made like a backup of it, but hey. And that's something that you can play with in all your frames, right? Because, for example, in this one here, you can also do a bit more of a precise job trying to like cast more shadow in the background, just a little bit, right? So that we get like a really nice frame of the foreground, which is like the lightest part of the image, and in the background, which is like a tad bit like less light than the foreground. And you kind of play with this like how you paint light, right? And the way that I would do it here is by honestly just having like shadow casters, right? Like I'm imagining that behind this building, there's just like a light, big cube or something like that. That is just like casting a shadow from the direction where the sun is coming from, right? Something like that. Because I'm assuming that that light is mostly coming from the sun, right? So you can do something like that where you play around with like shapes in the background to like paint with light, right? So that could be really cool. Just painting with light a little bit more. And then your second question here is, which atmosphere do you prefer? Honestly, this is one of those questions that I'd rather not answer, really. It is because this question basically comes down to, hey, what do you want me to say? Does that make sense? And I don't really want to push you into like what you need to say with your art. I want you to tell me what your art is to me, right? Because both of them, they share like a completely different mood, right? And it depends on like what you want to do with that mood and your scene. That is going to be like the voice that you're going to put out in the world, right? So let's say if you're going to go with like something more dark and somber on the left, that's going to be like completely perceived different compared to the right, where it kind of feels like more like a heroic return of like the whole army or something like that, right? So I feel a little bit hesitant. There's cool stuff that you can do with both of them, and I would make sure that you kind of use the light to exacerbate what is already out there, right? Or like what to emphasize what is already out there. So Luke is saying the daylight feels celebratory while the night and dusk feels almost like they're lost. Exactly, right? So that is something where like the light could have like an influence on the story that you're trying to tell, right? That could be, you could read into that, you know? Like you could almost say that like the night and dusk kind of feels like they still won, but at what cost? You know, like they're tired, they're downtrodden, like they're kind of like, ugh, but they barely just made it, right? And then you could potentially play into that by like swapping out like a bunch of the characters in the back with like guys that are like, they're not like up straight anymore, right? You could kind of play into that by doing things like that. Same with the hero one, right? Where you could have like people cheering on the sidelines and like being happy, all that kind of stuff. we can definitely get into that in a little bit, Crady. Omar is saying, yeah, it feels like they gave everything, while on the day one it feels like a bit more lightheaded and easy. Yeah, exactly. And that is for you to decide, right, Thomas? That is not necessarily for me to decide. Like, I want you to make a decision of what your art is gonna speak to us, if that makes sense. And let's see, your last question is, I see a lot of people putting two posts together, like the scene and the breakdown. Is that to avoid having a post that's too long? Yeah, so there are a lot of people that do that. Some people need to, some people don't need to. A lot of people make two posts because they think it's a good idea because they're probably going to post too much. What I would do is post it as one and like go over it a couple of times and take like a couple of days rest, right? A couple of days where you do something else, so you don't think about art, whatever. Come back to it and then look at it with fresh eyes and see if like all the things that are on there are still relevant to what you want to post. Because what I see sometimes is that people just post like all the camera angles, all the breakdowns, and like there's just like a ton of images where you can really quickly condense a bunch of stuff into like a couple of GIFs or a couple of images, or you don't even need to post like all your camera angles, right? It feels new and refreshing, and it shows something that you haven't really shown before. Post it. If it is just like, I mean, I'm gonna like exaggerate here a little bit, right? Let's say you have like the screenshot that you have over here, and then you rotate the camera like 20 degrees, and then you take another camera shot, and then you want to post that as well. Obviously, I don't want to see like a thousand like camera rotations of like the same shot, you know? That doesn't add anything else. So be very picky with what you show off, and try to think about like the information that you're trying to put out, especially for a breakdown, when it comes to what you're trying to convey to the end user, right? Or like the recruiter in this case. Yeah. Hopefully that was helpful. I will post this little image in your thread as always. And yeah, best of luck with that, Thomas. And let me know if that didn't make sense, right? Please do let me know. Let's see. Let's kind of keep it somewhat consistent. So, Joe Bates, we're going to talk about your work next. Made some lovely improvements. But first, let's talk about the unrelated question. But is there any chance you would go into the industry or business side of things? I heard it ain't doing too good, especially with the drastic rise of AI bloating the market. Honestly, I don't know why people are saying that AI is like bloating the market. I feel like a lot of that is just talk, but no actual proof. I'm trying to think about a way that I can convey like the impact of AI. Like, I've talked to people that are currently using AI assisted tools. So what that means is that they use like the content aware fill sometimes, right? Because that is an AI assisted tool. Maybe they use AI to like generate ideas or something like that. But we still have massive issues with the rights to an AI generated image, right? That is still an issue. So I don't know where like the drastic rise of AI bloating the market comes from, but I have not seen that. I have not seen that. I'm also talking from like a perspective of like AA and AAA, right? If you are running like a small studio, I mean, it's up to you what you do with that, right? But it's also up to you to then run with like the potential risks of that too. Not to say like I'm not like against AI. I'm very interested in like new tools coming onto the market, and if they actually change the way that we do things, I will pay attention to that. I don't think AI is there yet, especially when I'm talking about like 3D especially, right? Not even close. Even though there are companies that are trying to do it, but a lot of them are also scams at the same time as well. Like honestly, it's almost like behaving like a bubble. Yes. So the comparison that I always make is I was really interested in crypto, right? Yes, I know. And like everyone can kind of have like their own opinion on that, right? But I was kind of interested from like an artistic perspective, especially with the reselling of like your art, and that you could collect like residuals, right? With like NFTs and all that kind of stuff. Like that was like a really interesting side for me as an artist going into the space. But then I actually got into the space, and what I saw was nothing like what I was expecting, right? The same is happening with AI right now too, where I've used AI. I've used OpenAI. I've used Midjourney. I've tried a bunch of stuff. Like, it was cool. And then I used it for a couple of days just to play around with it. And then I just went back to doing what I wanted to do. Does that mean that there are obviously going to be, there are studies that came out, right, where they tried AI in like a production environment, and they said that currently the tool set is not good enough to be used, and that I need to look into those like studies actually. But yeah, like it's just not in a good place right now, not yet. Whatever that might mean, right? And maybe it never will be. But it kind of feels to me like the same kind of hype and like the bubble and like the enthusiasm that we get fed feels very, very samey to me, like it was with crypto. Like it feels 100% the same, that like the people that are knowledgeable about the things that we do, and I'm not talking about like CEOs making statements, I'm talking about actual artists making the art, like really, really getting interested from like a production perspective. I have not seen that. I just haven't. And we are infinitely far away from good 3D AI. Oh god, yeah. I think so too. I mean, KDIM 3D, I think, was one that I was following because that was like one of the earlier ones, and they have like controversy after controversy. There were a couple of things that I saw at Gamescom as well. They're just, yeah, they're not like game ready at all. I think we are gonna get to a point where people will be able to generate 3D things, right? I don't think that's out of the question. But then I also think about like how long it takes for like the industry to adopt like new things as well. Oh god, it takes such a long time. For example, a lot of companies, and this is like another really big topic, right? Why is Blender not industry standard? Right? To me, like the same conversation happens here. Blender is free, like it has a bunch of amazing tools, like it has a bunch of stuff going for it. But we have companies that are entrenched into like a certain program or in a certain set of working or with a certain workflow that they invested like billions upon millions into, that they're not just gonna give up and switch to like something else just because it's a new hot thing, right? The same happens with AI as well. I think honestly, if we're gonna see anything AI related that could have any viability, especially in the AAA space, is where you have big enough companies with big enough data sets. So let's think about like 3D, where they have like their own like asset library that they can then use like AI onto to then just spit out like new stuff that is relevant to like the database that they already have, right? That might happen at a certain point. But yeah, I don't know. Brian is saying, another thing I feel like the big layoffs and the lack of jobs has sort of happened at the same time as the AI hype, so it's easy for people to think that the main cause for the industry is state. Yeah, I think so. Well, I don't think those two are like, they're not even remotely connected. Yeah, AI, in my opinion, hasn't even happened to like the games industry yet. Like, I've not seen any evidence of that. Especially not in like the bigger AAA or like AA or like the bigger studios. No way. There's companies that are like openly committing to like, oh, seeing like AI as like the next revolution and all that kind of stuff. But I doubt that they're actually gonna find like a lot of really, like a lot of big improvements when it comes to their production pipelines currently. So yeah, I don't think those two are like connected at all. While it was just like post-COVID layoffs, I think that also, and I think also that like companies, especially the bigger ones, like it was the perfect storm, right? The biggest thing to me is that we are currently dealing with a market that is really healthy, in my opinion, when it comes to like indie games and smaller games and all those like innovative titles that are getting like more and more seen, and they're built with like smaller teams, which means that the actual size of people interested in like the big AAA games is just shrinking. They're looking for like different opportunities. They're looking for like different opportunities and like different things that they could do rather than the almost formulaic like AAA experience that you get from a lot of companies now, right? As you can see with like Concord and like a lot of other like live service titles, like they don't hit the same because it takes too long to build one. And by the time that they have, like the industry has already changed a little bit, right? I know someone who does web design as a living in a company. He wonders why he's getting less work, only to realize the company he's working for are feeding off all his past work into AI before he got laid off. Yeah, but I would be curious to see why, how long that's gonna last though. How long that's gonna last? Because there is going to be a day where those people, where they realize that I'm paying a web design consultancy firm to do my web design that is just doing it with an AI. Why should I pay you to do something that I can do myself? Does that make sense? Right? If they're just using an AI, like I just cut out the middleman and I use the AI itself. I know that it's like specifically trained on his past work and all that stuff, but it feels redundant at that point, right? Right? Thank you. I keep talking to people who don't know about the industry, and I assume AI is why I'm struggling to find work. Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting to see that we have like these waves of things that happen and people just put the blame on that, right? Like first it was crypto, especially when it comes to artists' work, right? Like first it was crypto, then it was NFTs, then it was like metaverse for a little bit, and now it's AI, right? AI is bigger than everything that came before it, but it just has the same recognizable pattern. It's crazy to me. And this is the thing, like you should be able to adapt, right? As like an artist, like I've had to adapt myself like multiple times as well, and that is something that you'll hear other artists on this platform say too. Like being able to adapt as like an artist and as a human being is crucial, right? But there is always something that comes out of like when you adapt, like there's always something like a new door that opens up. And the industry at large is going through the same thing at this point, right? So to your comment here, Craney, I hope that I managed to get a position in the industry before the mega corporate entity ruins it. That's not gonna happen. Like, I feel like this is like a YouTube conspiracy or whatever, right? And I love watching those videos too, don't get me wrong. But the way that I look at it is like the more that people are just tired of like the really big games that kind of feel like bland, it just means to me that like AA and like indie games are gonna find more success than they ever had before because people are looking for those things like now, right? And AAA at this point is like a really massive boat that is trying to make like a slow turn, whereas like a small company, you can be like nimble, you can be quick on your feet, right? So I think if I were to give you some advice, right? If I were in your shoes and you're trying to get into the industry right now, I would honestly not necessarily look for like a AAA anymore, but I would look for like the AA and like maybe the new studios that are starting up. I know right now, and this is why it's so hard to find a job, is that a whole bunch of people broke off from AAA and they started their own studios. But to get those studios off the ground, they need like really experienced people to set them up first before then they can start hiring like junior people. So we're in this just like dry spell where the bigger companies that have lost like senior talent are looking to replace those people that were talented, right? But the people that left those bigger companies and started their own companies are now also looking for other senior talent to really take that company off the ground before they can start hiring like junior people, right? So it created this like dry spell of like no one's really looking for juniors at this point. But if you stick it out, I feel that there's going to be a resurgence of like a lot of people looking for juniors and mids and all that kind of stuff in like a couple months, a year, who knows, but it's going to happen. So I'm really hopeful, if that really helps, you know? I really am hopeful because I feel like a lot of people spell like the end of the games industry. I think this is like a revival that's gonna really help and like make our industry like more healthier. What do you think about mobile game studios? Would it be easier to start there to get experience? Honestly, I would not even think about like, how would I say this? Like, I don't really make a distinction between like mobile game studios or like outsourced studios or whatever, right? The side of the industry that is quote unquote like looked down on. Whatever gets you a job, right? Like that's the main thing. Because I'll say this, like I started in at Frontier Developments, right? They were currently working, well, they were at that point working on Planet Coaster, which is a game that from the outside I didn't really have that much interest in like working on. But it was one of the best experiences that I had because it worked completely different. We were pretty restricted in how much stuff that we could do, and it gave me like a whole different experience and a different feel for how to create things within a budget. So I think relating it to like a mobile game studio is going to give you that same experience. And let's be honest, the stuff that you see these days on mobile game studios was better than like the games that I worked on in the beginning of my career. And that's not that long ago. Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, the mobile games that people are playing right now, they look pretty good. If you can enter a prompt to make a water shader, that would be great. You can try. You can try. Be curious to see what it spits out. Okay. It's a great conversation, though. Like, whenever you have those questions, whenever it's about, like, business and all that kind of stuff, too, feel free to open those things up as well. I'd love to talk about it. Like, and if it's helpful, just ask away. Mobile game studios are wild with optimization. You learn a lot from them. Oh, yeah. Yeah. There are a lot less performance restrictions when you work from mobile than on Switch. That is... I don't have any experience with mobile, right? But that makes sense. I feel like I'm talking to an AI now, Craney. I might as well be talking to an AI at this point. Looking at that like deranged capitalization that you did. I wouldn't even know. It's still a passion-driven industry. I think, so that is the interesting thing about this, right? Is that that's why people are leaving AAA to do their own thing now, because they're like, hey, I joined this with this passion, and I feel like I'm not being able to like use that passion anymore. So I'm just gonna set up my own thing, you know? That is pure passion driving those people to do like setting up their own business and becoming their own corporations, which is crazy, right? We're never gonna go back to like the old days where like people just started in their garage and like all that kind of stuff. It's more structured now than ever, right? But that doesn't mean that there can't be like beauty and passion like in this industry. I think it's still here. It's the indie scene, it's the double A scene. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of really passionate people there. Okay, Joe Bates, let's have a look. This weekend I've focused on the textures for the brick building, and for the feedback I was wondering what you thought. There's anything that I could change to improve the scene overall, and which camera angle you think looks best. Okay, let's have a look. It's so difficult. Like, I'm not... I kind of like this shot as well. Just because, like, you have, like, a nicer silhouette of the buildings. I would honestly... I feel like the sky doesn't match the light temperature. So this is actually something that we talked about last time, Omar, is that it was based on a picture, and the picture kind of had this sort of contrast, which looked like way more interesting than just having like a purplish sky. Yeah. Let's see. So, which one do I like the most? I am not a fan of how close, like, the bridge in like any of these, right, is too close to the frame. That's the first thing that I'll say. But then what I do like is probably this one the most currently. I don't know. Okay, maybe help me out here, chat. So top left is A, bottom left is B, and then the one on the right is C. Feel free to type in the chat which one you like the most. Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see. Maybe like a vertical angle would probably work the best. Because I'm kind of wondering if, like, Omar is saying C with a bit of zoom out. Sudan is saying A. Got like one vote here, one vote here. The right corner of C, a little bit empty. C. Oh, Camilla's saying there's too much noise in the bridge windows in C. Oh, I see what you're saying. That's an interesting point. Don't know why, but A looks pretty good. That's all good. Wait, let me see. So C, 2 votes, 3 votes. Camilla's saying, okay, Camille, do you vote for C because there's too much noise, or do you want to switch it up? And then Justin is saying A, and then Leonard is saying A as well. Interesting. Luke is saying C brings to my attention the high contrast of the orange-red wall, and then color contrast in the sky. I lose the bridge a little bit. Interesting. I'd vote for A. Okay, thanks, Camille. Oh, shit. Oh no, Luke. Do you vote for C? Or do you vote for something else? Because you could be making a tie then, if you vote for C. Should we count my vote as well? Not sure. I vote B. Dang, the wild card at the end. Okay. No, shit, Sulan, that's gonna make it so much more difficult. I feel like, honestly, okay, we're not going to count my vote. Oh, Daba's saying C as well. Okay. So that, if we count my vote, then C would win. But I feel like it's C with like an asterisk, right? Like some other people said the same thing, where like C, but a little bit zoomed out. So Bodhi and Omar said the same thing, and I totally agree with them too. Where I feel like if we zoom it out a little bit, or we like change the framing a little bit so that it's not just like square, but that we get like a little bit more zoomed out, but it's almost like this sort of a frame, right? Oh god, this is going to be so weird. This is not going to make sense at all, but... Right, so something like that, so that we get to see more water and that the bridge is like pretty dominant in the whole scene, right? I mean, this is going to look completely different when you render it out properly, but hey. Right, so something like that. And then honestly, what it comes down to me, and I think that's also why this tree is here, then it kind of becomes about like puzzling what you can do to fill up some of the sections here, right? And then maybe let's see. Luke is saying D. How dare you switch your vote? You can't do that. Okay, so we got 2 votes for D then. We know D doesn't exist. Okay, cool. There was one person who was saying, yeah, so Camilla's saying that there's too much noise in the bridge on C. I think I agree as well. And I think if I were to do... Yeah, if we were to look at C then in that light, you would need to find a way to reduce the noise that is added in the windows. I feel like something like this helps better. And it helps the silhouette of the bridge stand out more, right? Because now we kind of lose that like nice silhouette of it. So it's C, but it's zoomed out. So C is definitely the winner. Yeah. He would also have like a little bit of more of a leading up to the bridge as well. Yeah, I think that could work out well. I think we're honestly getting really close to what the original image actually is. You know? Like, I was looking at the image here. This is like my little overpaint that we did last week, right? Where... Ugh. Oh shit, I can't see it. Where this image here kind of has like the bridge. Like, let me see. Let me dunk. Oh, that's small. Right, so that's, I know it's with my overpaint and all that kind of stuff on top of it, but like, that feels like pretty nice to me. I would still keep it somewhat angled like you did, but then you can still keep the rest of it. Yeah. That's what I would do. Let's see. Anything else that stands out for you that can be improved? And which camera angle do you think looks the best? Yeah. I think, honestly, I would love to see you play around more with the colors still, right? Like, it's still pretty orangey. Like, I would love to see what you can do to kind of push out the contrast and the colors here. Oh, this is for context, by the way, Omar. This is where you kind of have like the purples on the bridge and like the blues in the sky and like the orange buildings, right? You kind of have like a nice play between like all the colors. It's already better than it was last week, but I think you can still push it like a little bit further than that. And then, yeah, something like this would probably be my go-to as well. Also, this is a bridge in Cambridge where I lived like 2.5 years and I've never seen this bridge. I never did like a boat ride or something like that. Because I was like, the entire time that I've seen this and I've given feedback on it, I was like, I think I recognize that bridge from somewhere, but I'm not sure. Of course. Courses in Cambridge. I could do a polling session, yeah, but it was just like a quick thing. But thank you so much, Joe Bates, for posting your work. I appreciate it. And best of luck as well. I think you're honestly like pretty close. We didn't really talk about like the texturing or anything like that because that's honestly up to you how far you want to push it. Yeah. Let's move on to Sulan. Let's see. Hey McFell. Hey Sulan. Here I am. I would love to know if there's anything, if everything is looking nice right now. I seem to see things a little bit more bland on the Unreal Engine renders, especially the grinder. It looks a little bit washed out and not as detailed as in the Substance render. Yeah. Well, that's usually the case, right? Where the way your render environment changes as well. So. Oh my god, this is just like a giant paragraph and like it's killing me. I know I had a pretty harsh HDRI on Painter consisting of black and white and had the Unreal Engine 4 LUT on, but I don't know if that makes everything look less contrasting. I think I should work on the coffee beans and the vials, making some glass for them and something to desaturate everything that's not coffee grinder to make everything feel more together. Yes, would love to get some feedback on the overall image. I can work on improving this as the main output for the final image. So I think I 100% agree. Glass is notoriously difficult, as you might have heard me say like a couple of times already. So that's not going to be too surprising. But yeah, these glass files, they would definitely need some improving, right? Mainly because it is so close to the hero prop, right? Also, you have just like a cabinet with like books, and then someone is making like really scientific coffee. I'm honestly not sure how this stuff all fits together. It feels pretty inconsistent. So far, right? It's just like a book, a cardboard box, and like another book. And then just like a random coffee machine on like someone's random desk. You know what I'm saying? It feels just like, here's a bunch of random stuff, and I'm just gonna throw it together and hope that it's like a consistent scene. But it's currently not yet. I would honestly think about like, if you're trying to showcase like a coffee break or something like that, right? First of all, what you could look into is if this is a coffee cup, right? But this is a book. Here I'm going. If this is like an average book, right? I don't have a book near me, but like this coffee cup is like really small. Right, so I'm expecting this guy to be, I don't know, like almost twice the size, which is to your benefit, right? This is awesome because now we make the hero prop bigger, so it's gonna stand out from like all the rest was beside it. That cup is a holder for the grinded beans, not a cup. I should maybe make a cup. Well, see, that brings up another thing, right? So if this is not like an actual coffee machine, but just a grinder, like why are they grinding it here and like not next to the coffee machine, right? And the answer to that can be like a whole bunch of things depending on what you do with the scene, right? If this person is like doing a whole bunch of like scientific research on how to get like the best scientific grind for coffee machines, that could be pretty interesting, right? But I kind of want to see that like laid out as like a scientist almost would be, right? Where you have because you have like a couple of samples here, right? Which is cool. But then also have like a section of samples here which could be labeled as like finished samples, and then you just have like all these samples in just like a storage space over here, right? And then like a bunch of notes here of just like, okay, I grounded this one this much, but that didn't work. I grounded this one this much, blah blah blah. And kind of try to sell the whole idea that this person is like just a nerd when it comes to like coffee grinding, right? But then a couple of questions come up, right? So a coffee grinder, cool. How do you test if the beans are actually good? I thought about doing those, but I didn't push it because I fear glass. Well, you already kind of dedicated yourself to glass anyway now. Right? Because those vials are gonna need glass anyway. So, yeah. It's kind of too late for that now, I fear. You could... well, I'm thinking petri dishes or something plastic, but that's the same thing, right? But honestly, like if you make a glass shader for one thing, like you can just reuse that on like the rest of it too, right? I do actually have a PDF, like a little tutorial on my ArtStation, I think, that talks about rendering glass. Even though it's in Unreal 4, like you might still get like a bunch of really cool tips on it. But I would honestly think about like, okay, how do they test the coffee? Who's testing it? Why are they testing it? Right? All these questions. Like, oh, you're working in Unreal Engine 4? That's perfect then. Yeah. So I have a tutorial that kind of takes you through how to make glass and that. But think about those questions and try to make it more consistent and coherent than it is now. First time rendering in Unreal? Yeah. If it's the first time rendering in Unreal, I would still try to do it in Unreal Engine 5. It makes it, in my opinion, so much easier. I know that my tutorial is not going to have like that big of an impact then, but like I would rather have you like use Lumen and like good dynamic lights rather than trying to make it work with like Unreal Engine and like potentially have to bake lighting or something like that, because that's going to be not fun. Let's see. Yeah, also a couple of different things, right, is lighting. Think about the source, and also think about the story, right? Like the story and the source kind of link really closely together to me, as in this looks like it could almost be like a scientific approach to things, but it doesn't feel like a scientific setting, right? Like we're just in like a guy's office. So you kind of have to make it sense in a way that this is not like a full scientist, but also like it's like an amateur, like, you know, Maybe he's trying to set up a business or something like that. But that's up to you to make that story make sense, right? Because right now it kind of feels like we're in an outdated spot, right? The environment itself feels outdated, but like this thing that we're currently looking at feels really high tech, feels modern, right? I did some light mass work and that stuff, so I kind of know what I'm fighting with. Yeah, okay. If you want to do light mass, that's fine. Honestly, you're probably not gonna run into like a lot of performance issues if you're just doing like a single light, like maybe 2 lights in like a single room. But it's still up to you, right? If you want to use Unreal Engine 4, that's fine. So yeah, the main thing would be lighting. Second thing would be how inconsistent things feel currently, right? And then the third thing, I feel like inconsistent kind of hints at a lot of things, right? So let's clarify that a little bit. The environment versus the hero prop, right? So that we just talked about. And also just the storytelling with additional props, right? They don't feel like they're either from like the same time to give that consistency. Yeah, really think about the story that you want to say, right? And that's like number 3 over here, I guess. It's like the coffee grinder story. What is it you want to say with that, right? Like, who's behind the coffee grinder and why are they grinding this coffee? And like, what are they doing with the coffee? Because you could do some pretty cool things where you have, let's say, let's actually have a look here. So let's say you have like a bunch of cups here. Right, and like all these cups are kind of filled with like different, slightly different colored like beans, right? Because he's like trying to like roast them in like a different manner just to get like different sample sizes, and you can call like the different sample size A, B, C, D, E, right? And you can kind of build it up in a way where this person is just testing and like doing a bunch of stuff with just trying to get the perfect coffee, right? I always have a bad time with setting it up in time. I always end up mixing artistic periods. This time pretty new stuff and some sort of art deco. Yeah, usually if you want to do that kind of stuff, you kind of have to keep it consistent to 1, potentially 2, but then you kind of have to make them work in like a good way, right? So we're actually watching like a streamer play Prey, right? And Prey kind of has that mix of like art deco, but also it's set in like a freaking space station, right? So maybe look at that game and see how they combine those 2 inspirations, right? To make it like their mix of things. Yeah. Yeah, because I feel if Prey is one of your main references, then the stereotypical school environment, that's what it feels like to me, is not working out, right? It doesn't have that like art deco modern vibe, but it is a difficult challenge that you set up for yourself, right? So keep that in mind as well. But yeah, I hope that helps. I hope that helps. Let's see. What was the last thing you posted? Yeah. Yeah, it's also like you don't really need to... You don't necessarily need to do like glass either, right? You can find creative ways of working around glass, right? So The cups were me thinking about an idea on how you can like showcase like different sample sizes, but just without glass, right? So you could do the same thing with those vials as well. Yeah, just think about like creative solutions, right? No worries, happy to help. And then we have Darkon. Darkon is next. I feel like this is such a pretty chill stream tonight. Like there's no rush. Because I'm not doing like, I don't know, 20, 25 people. Feels good. So, questions for the week. I'm using a single layer water in the shading model, and my new material is to make the water effect, but it's not coming out as I hope. Should I revert back to my old material? Or should I not be picky on recreating the same as my previous water material? Well, the previous one also had its own issues, right? So I think reverting back is not necessarily like the biggest issue here. However, I was chatting with someone today, and that someone is Adam, who will be doing like, again, like the Whip Wednesday takeover next week. And he actually showed me like a really interesting clip from Dune, the first movie, where this person comes out of this bath and it doesn't look like water at all. Because it apparently isn't water. It's like a really runny, like mud kind of situation. So while I don't think that your previous shader was like showcasing that, I also don't think that this one is making this work either. Yeah, it's like oil, like black oil, but that was like really important context. Like I thought it was just like a sauna. Not a sauna, but like a whirlpool kind of situation, you know? Or just sitting in like a nice hot tub. Oh, okay. But does it have the same sort of consistency though? Because the consistency can help you a lot in this case, right? Because the consistency of the water kind of hints at like how transparent it is, or like how deep we can look into things, right? Where right now it just feels like, oh, this is just like colored water. But like what you kind of want to have is that you have the first couple of layers just have a little bit of transparency, and then it kind of just becomes like this mucky, gooey stuff, right? Which is really tricky. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I have no idea. I have honestly no idea myself, right? So if it's not the same consistency, then okay, maybe water is cool enough. I think still the same kind of Oh, I told you that water was going to be hard. I told you so. I mean, to be fair, that was before you started on it, so yeah. I would not change it for oil and dark stuff, because that doesn't make sense, right? If you're trying to recreate the water, I think the only thing that's missing for me is just like the depth of the water, right? Justin is saying that honestly the consistency looks close. Just need to play with the color and perhaps add like a Fresnel in the material to get an oily sheen. Yeah, but a Fresnel doesn't do anything if the surface itself is not rounded though. That's the issue, right? Like you're not really gonna see that unless you're at like a really glancing angle or something like that. It's barely gonna be noticeable. In my opinion, just by looking at the image, the water should stand out from the rest of the environment. It should be threatening. Let's see. Let's go all the way back. Yeah, because I mean, oh my god, it's just so small. Let me zoom this in a little bit. So if we look at this as like a reference image, right? Again, I've not seen the movie, but just by looking at this, it feels like milky almost, or like almost like, I imagine that you just empty like your shampoo bottle in the whole thing and then just like dilute it with like a little bit of like water, maybe, so that it's like a little bit more runny. That's what it feels to me. Let's actually see. Was there another image here? I mean, I'm not gonna see too much of it. Really organic like body fluid? Yeah. Something disgusting like that. So it is a difficult material to get right. If you are having issues with getting this exactly right though, I am probably not going to be the best one to help you with it either, because this honestly comes down to like knowing how to set up like a shader, right? I set up shaders, but specifically for water, like the only node that I can point you towards, but it's been so long since I had to use it that I don't really have an idea anymore. And it's also like Unreal Engine 5 right now, so even less of an idea, is a depth fade node. And you can probably use that in a way to kind of give like the effect that like it goes from like transparent to like murky at a certain point. Right? So you can kind of keep like the texture that you have on top, but you're just changing it into shader. You're not doing anything else. That's what you kind of want to have. You want to have like the transparency that you have now, and then it goes into like murky stuff with that. Slightly transparent at the edges, so transitioning into the edge of the tub. Yeah, something to give you like a transition, right? Because now, I mean, it does exactly what it says, right? Like single layer water is what you're using right now. And that's what it looks like. But it's not effective enough. For me, it needs Fresnel for sure. But yeah, Fresnel doesn't help though. Like Fresnel is also based on like the viewing angle, right? And like the object itself. So for example, if you have a sphere, you can then say to like have it affect like the outer edges of the sphere, right? But you cannot do that on like a flat surface. Like you can probably do something that you want, that you guys want with like a depth fade node, because that is gonna give you like a little bit of control where it like basically contacts with like another surface, right? Which is happening at like the edges here. So you can kind of give like a little bit more contact there. But yeah, Fresnel's not going to be that helpful in this case. What about the reflections from the wall, like in the reference? Yeah, that could help. So for that, you would look into like a planar reflection. But it's not really gonna help with the water itself necessarily, right? I mean, it's gonna help with the reflection and the read of the water, but it's not gonna help with like the depth of like the volume of the water itself. So yeah, that's all I can honestly say. Look into the depth fade node, maybe that might help. But the other thing is also like, look, if you're breaking your back on this, right, it might also just be time to like, hey, let's just do like a couple final things that we can do, and let's move on to the next thing, right? If this is like the only thing that's holding you back, sometimes it's nice to just be like, okay, it's not perfect, but it's good enough. I'm gonna post it. And then if I find out some stuff later, you can always go back into it and like make some changes, right? Yeah, that's fine. If you're at that point, post this, move on, right? Because what you don't want to do is like, you don't want everything to be perfect, right? It doesn't need to be, not gonna be. Let's see, any other tips for the water? No, I think, yeah, should I keep polishing for perfection or should I move on due to time constraints? Just move on if you feel like at that point, right? Like I would see if there's like quick wins that you can have with like a depth fade node, and maybe implement like planar reflections, because that is going to help with like the reflectivity of the water. But after that, just maybe take a break for a little bit, right? Because I can already tell that you're like at a point of less like frustration. Give yourself a couple days break, then present the whole thing, and then move on to like the next project, right? And that break in between is just going to make sure that you can do like the presenting part of your environment with just like clean eyes, right? You want to give yourself a moment to rest as well. But yeah, thank you for posting your work, Darkon. And just keep on moving on. I mean, honestly, you've made great progress, right? You've tried a whole bunch of things. Like obviously with Wednesday, we're only seeing like a small part of it. But I can see that you've made like a whole bunch of changes. You've tried a whole bunch of stuff. So great stuff there. Thank you guys, appreciate it. Oh, was these? Oh my god, what was that? Thank you guys, appreciate it as always. You guys are amazing. Yeah, you're doing good as well. Like, keep going, and I'm curious to see what you're gonna do for the next one. I'm gonna give you a hint. Don't pick anything with water, please. I think you learned that lesson by yourself now, but hey, just making sure, right? Okay, next one up is from Carl. I started on this last month and I'm like 70% done in this environment. I really appreciate any feedback and suggestions. I will gladly appreciate them. I should also mention that the foliage are mega scans. That's fine. All the rest is made by me. Okay, so usually, because this is your first time posting, right, Carl? So I appreciate you posting for the first time. Welcome, welcome. I would, for the next time, think about like what you want me to feedback on specifically, because that helps both of us out as well. Let's have a look. Let's see, so we got like the main shot and then we got like some additional shots as well. This is really different than the source material as well. Not that there's anything wrong with it, right? But there's some interesting stuff that we can learn from the source material here. Let me actually grab this real quick. Right, so let's have a look-see here. Work in progress is a plan. Work in progress on the paintings, and I plan to create more props to scatter as well. So I think the core of what I would say here first is water damage. Right, that's a big thing in this environment, and that's going to require like research and references, right? Because right now what is happening is that you have a bunch of damage, right? So you have like exposed brick, exposed plaster, all that kind of stuff is happening, but the huge damaging factor on this would actually be the water, right? So the water here is going to mean that at a certain point, maybe the water was higher, right? So that's going to create like this really interesting like line across your whole environment, where it's going to show that like areas have been affected by like water damage, right? So you kind of have that like line here. And what that is gonna mean is that a lot of the materials are gonna have been faded out at like a certain line, and are gonna be damaged in a certain way according to like how water damages things over time, right? Which is huge in an environment like this. Also, that's why a lot of the stuff that you probably see on the ceiling is gonna be damaged in the same thing as well. It's gonna be just moist from like the amount of like water that's been damaging it over like all this time. And that usually means that like the paint is gonna be wearing off, like it's gonna be like peeling and falling and like all that kind of stuff. That's where this is coming from, right? And it's also gonna discolor like a lot of the spaces here. So instead of having this like, what I'm kind of anticipating now is that you have this damage that goes from plaster to like the concrete underneath it, and it almost feels like someone has chipped away on it, right? But it doesn't feel like it's coming from water damage specifically. So that's the main thing. Look at how water damage works and see if you can implement that into your environment, because that is gonna change your environment in a huge way. In a huge way. Second thing here, if it's Luke is asking as well if this is from like a concept inspired by The Last of Us. So the concept is down here, but I don't know. It kind of looks like Last of Us kind of stuff, right? But it's not necessarily. Or it doesn't seem to be, anyway. But it kind of has that feeling. Very Last of Us feeling. So second thing that I wanted to bring up is contrast. Right? This part, this concept does that beautifully. I'm in love with like the way that it controls it, right? You have like a bright spot over here, you have like a secondary spot over here, but number 2 is not as bright as number 1. This forces us to kind of look into this like nicely sectioned off like area over here, and it kind of leads you up into like this area where it's like, ooh, something mysterious going up there, right? But actually the spacing and the orientation and like the rotation of like the staircase is meant to kind of take you up the staircase as well, and it's going to lead you into like, I think there's like a set of doors behind it as well, right? So like, really interesting concept that you picked, and I think this concept is executing the composition in like a very masterful way, right? If we were to zoom in a little bit, you can kind of see like how it's kind of taking you up there, how it's like keeping you in this zone by like this spiral staircase, and it's like everything is nicely composed to kind of keep you in the center of the image, right? Which, it's tricky to nail that, right? It's a very organic shape, and I feel like for the next, I'm not saying that you have to change like your whole environment, right? But that could be something to look into for your next project. But what I meant with the contrast here is that yours is kind of missing a whole bunch of that, right? Where in this case, missing the contrast, and like especially like the mood, right? It's not only the contrast of like how light and how dark the spaces are, but it's also like the mood that is not being reflected anymore by you changing the colors and the tones of those lights, right? Where, again, because your lights lean more to the yellow and orange spectrum, it kind of feels more hopeful. It kind of feels less I don't know, dark, less moody than the concept that you've chosen, right? Which can be a deliberate choice, but something to keep in mind. Then we got like these two like detail shots over here. This one is kind of meh. I'm not too sure. Like, I wouldn't necessarily include this one here because I feel like it's just a zoomed in shot into plants that are like growing from wood. Like, there's no connective tissue here, right? Like, normally when you see like plants growing on top of this sort of stuff, that means that there's like a buildup of like organic material that then the plants can kind of grow out of, right? Plants don't just grow out of like wooden planks, right? And then for this one, I think this one could be cool. This one could be cool. If we're putting something in those frames, right? Which I know that you're working on, so that could be an interesting shot. But again, think about the way that you're constructing your scene and your composition to like focus us to like a certain specific thing, right? Because right now, without that contrast that like the main image has, like we're not directly forced or like pushed to look at something specific, right? It just feels like, oh, look at these nice paintings, but there's nothing really pulling us there yet. Yeah. I'm gonna keep it at that. I think honestly, the main thing here is the water damage. Conveying that by itself is gonna be tricky as well. But do a bunch of research, grab a bunch of references, and try to make it look good, right? That's already gonna be like a big challenge just by itself. So I'm gonna keep it at that, Carl. For next time, feel free to ask questions about like specific things that you're interested in growing in, right? And then we can help you out on that. Cool. Next up, we got Justin. Questions for this week. Thoughts on the current pass? Is it too contrasting, and should I tone it down? I think so. It's just, I think you can be more subtle about it. I think when I was doing my overpaint last time as well, I feel like you can definitely like tone it down just a little bit, right? Just by the fact that you're kind of asking me, it's almost like you're asking me for permission to say that it's too contrasting. I don't know. It feels like you almost wanted to do it, but you're just asking me for permission, right? So I think, yeah, that could definitely be something to play around with. Omar is saying I would have lighter shadows as well, which is interesting. Interesting in the way that this is already like way lighter than we had it before. And I think it's also interesting in the way that there's question 4 goes into this a little bit deeper as well. I tested out the render on my iPhone and it comes out looking okay. If it comes out looking okay, then if you're happy with it, right, then kind of keep it that way. Okay, hold on. Nacho is barking, so I'll have to be right back. Okay, we're back. Question 2. Should I try to replicate the bounce lighting from the bell to the Basel Commons as seen on the first screen? Oh, this one over here. I feel like this would take away from the main focus, that is the bell, but at the same time I think it helps give like a less harsh transition between the cool and the humid lights. The last two, oh god, let's see. Um, Honestly, not too sure about this one. I try to replicate the bounce lighting from the bell. Oh, so you kind of want to replicate that with like the lights coming down? I'm not sure. That's something you'll have to try. Like, I'm looking at the comparisons here. And I kind of like. Let me give some context here, right? Because I'm just looking at my other screen. Hey, thank you for the sub, Adriana. Appreciate it. So we have this guy over here. Got this guy over here as well. And the main thing that I like is that we're getting like this bounce light and making it like making the back of the scene like readable in like a subtle way, right? That's what I like about it. But that's about like the only thing that I like about this sort of lighting. So if you're talking about that, yeah, could be interesting. And opinions on the main asset. Does the rust appear more defined and less noisy compared to before? Yeah, I think it definitely does. It definitely does. It is. It is pretty intense though. Don't you think? Just from like an artistic perspective, if you look at like the intensity of the colors, it feels like it's pretty intense, right? I would potentially just tone down like the contrast between the bronze and the oxidization more. I know that you did like a lot of research and like you had like all the comparisons and all that kind of stuff, but I think honestly, when it comes down to it, the artistic eye is gonna trump like a lot of what is real in real life, right? Like we are still trying to do like a distillation of what is the actual thing like in real life, but yeah, in terms of like the placement of it, it looks better already. Yeah. Omar saying there's a lot of color around the character and the pink pots feel a little bit out of place. Oh, just color wise. Yeah. It's something that I still have to agree with. Like, it still feels like really noisy and really chaotic, right? But that's something we brought up last time as well. And then with environment art, is it important to have light illuminating everything the viewers can see? Can darkness be useful in allowing the viewers an opportunity to use their imagination to figure things out? Yeah, 100%. Like, and this is where you get to pick as like an environment artist, especially with your own personal work, you have full control, right? If you wanna put like areas in full darkness and almost kind of use them as like silhouettes rather than anything else, you can do so, right? You can probably do so in like very effective ways, right? Where you have like a lot of light in the scene now, but I almost want to look at things with like a natural vignette. Right, so what that means for me is, nope, not this one. Let's do the burn one. Like all this stuff around here. We're really just gonna darken that all up. Stuff back there as well. It's all just like not important stuff, right? Really just, we're gonna see like the before and after just in a little bit. You only want to retain like a little bit of light, right? Like I know that we kind of go back and forth on this, but Like we're almost swinging the pendulum like really hard at the moment, where like my intent last time was not to say that I want to see like more light everywhere, but that there's like a couple of points where you can indicate that you want like a little bit more light, right? What did we point out like last time? Yeah, let's see. I can't find it like immediately, but you use light in like a very direct way of just like, for some areas you can keep the light like just really close, right? Like really condensed. And let's see. This pillar, we only need like the silhouette, just maybe like a little bit. And then this thing in the back doesn't really matter that much. Right, and then this stuff over here. Right, and now we're gonna compare the two now. Right, so you can see what the difference is, right? And then you can kind of bring back like areas that you think are missing. Where let's say, hey, I kind of want to have like this area a bit more visible, right? Just a little bit, so that you can hint at something. So that you can hint at something like, oh, this is an entryway. Cool. So this is where I come in. This is where I come down. This is where I go up. Nice. Right. So you can indicate that like, oh, this is like the entrance where they came in. But I'm using like light with like a very specific and very deliberate, you know? So long story short, like you can like have like a lot of stuff in darkness as well. And obviously what you see on screen is going to be like slightly different than what I have on my screen here. But like you can use darkness if you wanted to. You just have to still sell it as like what's the story behind it and what is like the navigable path and all that kind of stuff, if you kind of want to sell it as like a game environment, right? But a lot of this stuff goes hand in hand with what we've been saying, right? So well, like, let's not call it like navigation, let's call it just like leading the eye. And leading the eye in this case means that I want to see a recognizable path. A recognizable path. Like a lit hero prop, right? The statue. And then rest versus detail is really important in this environment as well. Because yeah, you have a lot of clutter, but like you need to lead me through the environment by potentially having a lot of clutter, right? You can have that and then be like really thoughtful with how you like pace things out here so that you can clear up like the road that we're taking visually, right? Yeah. Been gathering other artists' opinions from fine art and photography as well as opinions from unrelated fields, but it's been a mixed result. Yeah, honestly, like I would not like ask like other people, especially not outside of like a visual field, like any input, because it honestly throws you off more than it does well. So talk to like other game artists, right? See what they think about it. See what makes sense to them. Always get like multiple opinions. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've got like a bunch of opinions here too, right? Where well, Bran is literally working on the same exact scene as well. So, hey, maybe you two talk about it, right? And then Omar is saying there's a lot of color around the character and the pink pots feel a little bit out of place. We discussed that already, but that's like a good opinion as well, right? Like, and that comes down to visual noise, right? Which is a thing that we talked about a lot already. But it's visual noise can come from like so many ways. It's geometric detail, like from geo, from textures, from silhouettes. It can come from like so many places. And I think in this case, it comes from like just a bunch of assets that are just like clumped together. And then also because they're like pretty varied in like texture and they kind of have like very bespoke albedo, right? They have like a very distinguishable base color. And same can be said with like the green, right? The green is like really saturated. Like in a cave like this, I want to see, again, I want you to see me lead the eye by like being very conscious about like the colors you pick, the shapes you pick, the amount of stuff you put on the floor, like all that kind of stuff. It's almost, if I were to simplify it, right? The main path, make that like a lighter color than the rest of like the area. And then all the rest of it, like all the pots, all the rocks, like all that stuff, keep them inside of the same color spectrum. So like the colors that the rocks have, make the pots the same kind of color and just vary them slightly, right? And try to think about it in those terms, where you can have variation between assets to still make them stand apart, but the variations shouldn't be as big that like, oh my god, like there's so much happening on the floor here now. If that makes sense. So I hope that helps, Justin. I hope that helps. And we can continue moving on to some other people as well. I think George is actually up next. So let's actually have a look at George. Oh, sorry. I wasn't on time to press the button. Happy to hear any feedback you have about it. Oh, and also about like how I could present this in my portfolio. Maybe I could build like a simple and small micro environment for it. Like a brick wall, the floor, and the door, basically. Or do you think that wouldn't actually help? Yeah, no, you can do something like that. I think, honestly, doing exactly what is on here. Doing exactly what is here is a good example of what you could do. Right? Because that's literally just like stone floor, stone wall, a little bit of foliage next to it. That's it. Luke is asking, but this is about like the previous scene. With a scene like this, with a well-defined like hero asset at the center, would it be reasonable to use smaller prop assets from the marketplace, if at all? Yeah. How much you want to use, that's up to you, right? Because you could go all the way and have like all the smaller assets be like marketplace. I wouldn't necessarily go that far. But let's say you're making like a whole natural environment and then you want to have like some, I don't know, some trinkets and some pots and some clay pottery in there. finding clay pots on the marketplace and then just dumping them in there, breaking them up yourself. Nothing bad with that. Not at all. But yeah. Honestly, what my going back to George's thing here is the microenvironment is a good shout. What you could do with that is Megascan textures. And this is, I do this with like another reason as well. Oh, what's happening? So making a microenvironment with Megascan textures, in this case, is not only going to be helpful for just making the environment itself, but it's also going to be very helpful for actually seeing if your assets and your textures hold up against Megascan stuff, right? Because honestly, like, especially when it comes to like AAA, like this is the expectation that you should be able to match like how good they look, like how in detail they look. So if you make that environment, I would take it to step 2 and like really polish up. Really polish up like all the textures you have, right? Based on those Megascan textures. I'll give you like a little hint, and this is a hint that I now use like all the time, is I will just have like a random color noise on top of my let's say for this layer, right, where you have like the wood, the dirty wood texture. For that layer, I would honestly add just like a randomized color noise, set it at like 5 to 10% or something like that, make it really subtle. But it's gonna elevate your materials to look like they're more in depth than they actually are. But it needs to be subtle, right? But that little bit of color variation is gonna do a lot. And you can do that on the base wood, you can do that on like the wood on top of it, you can do that on like the stone, you can do that in your moss, you can do that on all the individual layers that you have. But having that little bit of like a randomized color on top of it, it's going to help a lot. This is actually a trick that I learned from one of our workshops that we did, where, shit, I can't think of the name anymore. But building a complex environment in Substance Designer, I think, where it was shown that one of the tricks, and this is like a trick that's been passed down from like multiple people, and this was in Substance Designer, where the color node, or like the colorize node, it would just sample like all the buttons in Substance because they have like randomized colors, sample all of that, and then plug that into like a randomized color node, and then overlay that on top of like whatever layer you wanted to color, right? And it would give that just that like little extra kick of just like randomization that you would expect from like any color. But yeah, I think short and easy. I think that's pretty much going to be it for this one. So yeah. I would really look at it in that way, where the next step would be all about testing how good your stuff looks and then pushing it to like the next level. Hello, Hudson. Welcome. Good to see you here. How are you doing? Let's see. Next up is Adam J. Adam J over here making like a little golf cart. Can everyone see if there's anything that I can do to improve the textures to make it more convincing? Yeah, sure. I mean, you've got like a whole bunch of references, right? Let me see. I'm not gonna post the references here, but the goal is to make the golf cart cleaner than how it looks here. So some of the images here, you can kind of see that there's like dirt and dust and all that kind of stuff. Honestly, I would still expect to see all of this anyway in your interpretation, and then just make it a little bit cleaner, right? And do a lot of that, because even if you want to make something look clean, you still add visual interest by adding, like Omar is saying, color variation, roughness variation, subtle layers of wear and tear, all that kind of stuff. But what is important is that you still need to exaggerate a lot of those things too. Because if you look at this dashboard, for example, that is way too clean. Like, that is pristine, right? So I'm expecting to see like a lot more stuff happening there. Same for the golf cart itself. If we don't zoom in, like, it's really hard to see like any wear and tear on it at all, right? So, and this is oftentimes something that we do, right? Is we call it like the gamification of like textures or game assets or whatever. And it's because we take something that's like, this is realistic, right? But it's not interesting to look at. So there's this balance that we need to have between that's actually a good point, Omar. A golf cart with a counter, with like a speedometer that goes to 220. What? That's crazy. But what I was talking about, it's actually pretty important, is that what is realistic, or what can often be realistic, is oftentimes not interesting to look at. Especially when it comes to clean things, right? It's I would rather see an interpretation that is like honestly pretty much in line with like the cool references that you showed, where there is like a lot of really cool stuff happening here, right? Like all this dirt and like all this buildup. Like, it's not too much, but this would make like a really interesting cart to see. If you could nail like all the layers that are present here, that would be really impressive to see on your portfolio as just like an asset, right? Yeah. Like, honestly, I would just 100% go for this and look at like all the beautiful ref that you have, right? Like the little things here that you can kind of see, like right above you have these like little bits of dirt and specks and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, all this stuff that is not dirty. That's just like it's been in the sand a little bit, right? At least to me, that almost feels like it's just like passive, hey, I live near a golf course kind of sand that just like blows on top of the golf cart kind of stuff. So yeah, I would really push. Really make it dirtier, right? Like, you got some beautiful ref. Just look at the reference and use it, right? So yeah. But yeah, second part is definitely like gamify your assets, right? And this can apply to assets, can apply to the way you model, the way you texture, all that kind of stuff. We always want to exaggerate like reality to a certain point. But yeah. And also, one thing, lastly, is if you want to make things more realistic, again, we kind of need to amp up like the response of those like textures, right? Is roughness variation is key in that. So for example, making this plastic feel different from this plastic by giving it just like a slight like making this like a little bit more dull and making this like a little bit more shiny, right? Instead of them having them super close to each other, like pulling them further apart, so there's like more visual interest. I think, in honestly, and this is a weird suggestion that I'm gonna make because it's oftentimes that I have to do the opposite, but look at golf carts in game. That would be my recommendation here, which is a weird one because I tend to do the opposite. Plastic gets yellowy in the sun. Yeah, like a lot of stuff, right? Like sun discoloration, sun erosion, the color fade that happens. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool effect. But yeah, this is the thing. I think it's more of like, hey, I want to make this super clean, but also interesting at the same time. And I don't think, unless you're going for like a hyper realistic look, but I don't think that's the case here, knowing like your previous like portfolio work. Like I feel that's also not the goal as well. So if you want to make it like more interesting here, you gotta like push apart and gamify like the textures a little bit. Yeah. Hope it was helpful, Adam. I'm gonna speedily move along. Next one is Omar. Hello, Omar. It's been a while. I found some time to update the sort renders. Tried putting in practice all the feedback I received. How does it feel to you guys? What a gorgeous prop. I know, right? It looks so good. Hudson is saying, I get that dirty assets are done all the time, so maybe they try to make this one crisp and clean. Yeah, but the issue with that is that that's not what games are about, right? Like if you were going for like a product rendering position, make those assets crisp and clean, right? Do it. But then we're also talking about like, hey, your work needs to be mimicked in a way that you can make like a 3D render and like people think it's the real thing, right? So, and then we're talking about like hyper realism and all that kind of stuff, or like realistic assets. But if you want to work in the games field, like that's the thing that we do, right? Like we make everything like a little bit more bumped up than it is in real life. We make everything like a little bit like more exaggerated, like it's like in real life, right? Especially when it comes down to like a single prop that it has to have. It has to have some pizzazz, you know? Okay, cool. Let's see. How does it feel to you? Oh, there's one missing. Oh no, that's like a video. Why did I not have that video? Or did I have it? I didn't drag it in. Yeah, that's this one. Let's see. Omar. Oh. Let's see. Let's play the video. Very cool. Yeah, so detailed. It looks really nice. The only thing that I found like pretty strange is in the camera work here, where like it switches from like being focused on the blade to like switching to the foreground. I don't know. I think I wouldn't have minded if it would just like kind of just like pan out and then just like stopped right here, you know, without doing like the fade in the foreground. I know that you have like a bunch of cool stuff here, of course, but it kind of feels weird that we're just like, it's almost like an L take. Not L as like, oh god, not in like Twitch lingo, you know, but like, I'm imagining like we're going straight across the whole sword and then we're like moving closer to the camera. It feels really weird to do that. Yeah, the rest of it is beautiful though. Really nice and detailed. There is like a lot of jittering that happens, and I got no clue why this is happening, right? Or like I have no idea on how to solve that, but you see like a lot of like just glittery stuff that happens. Maybe that's because of the depth of field and the anti-aliasing or something like that. Is there a wireframe? I don't think you want to see the wireframe on this. But that was also not the point on this one, right? See, I just realized I'm scrolling on screen here. Just having a quick browse. Let's see. Yeah, it's more about like the textures and believability and all that kind of stuff. It's almost like, yeah, I don't want to see the wireframe, but I'll post it for fun as soon as I can. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not expecting like the, yeah, because this is all like individually detailed, like, yeah. It's more like a display of like, hey, look at like the material work that I can do, right? Textures and modeling, yeah, exactly. So what do I think of it? Like, yeah, apart from that one quick thing, let's have a look. Right, so the first thing is just like the video, right? Video, depth of field end. Let's call it that. That was pretty weird. It's a minor thing. The video for itself like looked pretty good. I think what can be improved though is I love this angle. This angle looks nice. The only thing, and this is not anything to do with like the sword, I love like, basically I love like all of this, right? And even this, it's just, this edge kind of bothers me because like that would be like the edge of a tile, but like obviously it's like a tileable that's mapped onto like a corner. And just because we're getting so close to it, like there is a part of me that's like, oh, this is not perfect like the sword is, right? So that's like a minor thing. I would also potentially look into like adding like a bit more detail here as well, because it feels like flimsy, or even like curl it towards the edges or something like that. That it's not just like a plane, or like it almost feels like a napkin or something like that, right? Because we can just see the edge of it. So having the edge like kind of curl or something like that, that could help with just the perceived thickness of like the cloth that the sword is resting on, right? That could help with that as well. The zoom reveals my laziness with the other assets. Yeah, and like it's not gonna take too much time to like fix that, right? Like you could potentially fix that like pretty easily. I mean, if you look at like the background here, for example, you can kind of see that too. But yeah, with like a shot like this, honestly, the only thing that I could say is just like the border here, because for the rest of it, the textures feel like really nice, you know? It's all, like you said, it's quick fixes. Quick fixes for like some detail shots, right? What I was gonna say is that I love this shot, just the way that it's laid out, the way that it's presented. I am not too sure. I'm not a fan of this one currently. This one, I'll give it like a broken heart, right? I don't want to give it like a cross or anything like that, but I'll give it a broken heart. Because I'm not in love with it yet, but it could still happen. I think it's just because it's not like the most interesting part is like filling up the frame, right? Like it's only used sparingly in the frame, and like the rest of it is kind of just like very depth of field, like hidden stuff, right? I'm not too sure about this one yet. This one, I feel like honestly this one I'm not in love with yet, but I feel like this is one of those camera shots that will grow on me like over time. I know that's like a weird thing to say, but like my immediate reaction is like, I'm not too sure about this one. But then the more that I look at it, I'm like, yeah, it is. Maybe it's also just because this like little trim is just distracting me, right? But like, it is like nicely balanced, right? I like that you have like most of it covered in shadow, and then this is like where the light catches. Maybe, maybe it's also because this is like such a super bright spot now. Right? And that's like pretty distracting. Like my attention is going here a lot. Like not even for the seam, right? Just for like the contrast with the rest of it. And I would kind of expect, I don't know, like some sort of shape, like some sort of like sun shape to go across like the whole thing. So it could almost be, oh god, this is not gonna look good either, I think, but like that, this entire section could be like in the sun. I don't know. I think that's where it's more like an artistic approach to things, right? And I think it's more about like playing with the rotation of the sun, like playing with like shadow catchers and all that kind of stuff to just get like that one juicy shot that you want to get out of it, right? And I think it's getting there, but it's not there yet. Compared to this one, yeah, really nicely balanced, really well presented. This is definitely my favorite one up until this point. I see you got to do some more tweaking around. Yeah, I think you're getting somewhere, right? And that's why I'm kind of hesitant to. I mean, also, I don't really. This is one of those cases where I kind of want to like play around with the scene myself and just see what I can do with like the stuff that's on display, right? Because I'm almost thinking about like you could do some interesting stuff with like the palm leaves and have them cast like a shadow over like the sword, and then use those like slivers of light that are coming through like the palm to like cast some really interesting shadow and like light on certain parts of the sword. Something like that, right? Instead of just using like a large section, you could potentially use like stuff in the background or assets that you have lying around to help you with like creating like more contrast or something. But yeah, like so most of those ideas honestly come from like just me looking around like in my environment and being like, ooh, I can play with this, you know? Yeah. That's the thing, like you're going somewhere and I like where it's going, right? So it just comes down to playing around more with like a light and shadow, right? Yeah, amazing prop. I love it too. Yeah, it looks so good. So good. Also, the materials feel really, really well done, you know? I do not have the patience for this. Not by a long stretch. I'll just be honest about that. But I can see that you really enjoy crafting something like this, you know? It's beautiful. One thing that I particularly liked, and it's only visible in... It's only... well, it's not only visible, but like it's really visible in the video, is the little damage like on the edge of the blade is so well done. And like the little specks of rust, right? And the little specks of like oil just like still in the blade, and like the little stripes like from coming from the hilt. Oh. Yeah. Just the damage of it all, right? And this is honestly what I mean when I know this is crazy for someone who has just like finished their first prop, right? Like this is a crazy high bar to aim for. But this is what I mean with like the subtlety of the layers, the individual layers that you should try to aim for, right? Like those little rust spots, they're almost invisible. But they make a huge difference because they're there, right? Same for this little spot here. There's only like 3 of them here, and the rest of it, no. But they're there, and it makes a difference, right? And it gives like the prop so much more character. So cool to look at. So cool to look at, Omar. Really well done. Come on, Discord. Jeez. Yeah. That's all I had to say about it. Just really well done. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do with the experimentation that we talked about before. It'll be cool. Amazing feedback. Thanks a lot. No worries. Happy to help. I mean, I was surprised that I can't say anything about this at all, but hey. Like Mir, I like that it looks like an object that is well cared for, but the passage of time still has made its subtle mark. Yeah, exactly. And that is cool, right? Because that's a story behind this sword, right? And you can tell that like the person who took care for it like was taking care of it really well, but you can still see that like it shows age, right? That's so cool, that depth that you have there. Because okay, we're going on a complete fucking side tangent now, right? But like what a lot of people think is storytelling is, especially when it comes to doing it on like a single prop, is scratching like the number count on the gun and having like a skull engraved in the gun and all that kind of stuff. But it's not, right? Like it's all those little subtle layers that come together to then tell a story, right? Yeah, really well done. And then the last person that we have for today is Wilson. I have not seen Wilson before, so I'm going to assume that Wilson is new. So happy to see you here, Wilson. Glad to see you. I'm currently working on a few small projects. One small, one medium, and one large. Okay. Interesting approach. I tend to start a new project whenever I see a cool concept art. I want to try something new. Okay. Yeah. That is. If you finish all the stuff that you set on trying to do, that's good. If you don't finish anything, it's probably not a good approach. Not necessarily. Forgot to change his tag? What do you mean, Gio? Oh, are you not in the running? But let's see. This model is based on an image I found online. However, I was not able to find the artist behind the design. I'm going to add more character to this model by either sculpting or texturing. Okay. Oh, that sucks. Okay. That sucks, Gio. Let's see. There's no questions in here. So just a reminder for next time, Wilson, is that if you want to ask any questions or what I can help with, feel free to do that as well. No, it's all good, Gio. Like, it's something to keep in mind for next time. I know that sometimes it's annoying because I keep removing the tag whenever I give him like feedback and stuff, right? Maybe I'll put that in like the message as well. Cool. This is actually like a perfect segue if we're coming from like Omar's work, right? Because a lot of what happens here is basically when it comes to texturing, it's kind of missing like the subtlety and like all the attention to detail that we were kind of saying before, right? And keep in mind, I say this with the best intentions and also with like the unimaginable like expectation that I put on people, which is not the intent, right? I don't want you to like set like a super high bar. But like you should try and work your way towards that, right? So the way that we kind of build that up is references for, in this case, gunmetal and like different kinds of gunmetal. For wood and for this specific gun, right? And if you don't know what this gun is, have a look at what guns are out there, or like what revolvers are out there, and try to find like the closest match that you can have. Right? And that's going to help you a lot. Yeah, because that is going to help you get away from like this the generic texturing approach that you currently have, where like there's no information when it comes to the directionality or like why it's damaged in one place but not in another, you know. It's just, it feels like it's pretty uniformly just applied to like all the surfaces, which is not how things are damaged, right? So that's something to keep into account. Also, another thing when it comes to lighting, try to have lighting. Usually this is like a 3-point, like this is the common example, right? When it comes to lighting, is you have a 3-point setup. So let's say you have your hero prop here, you have one light over here, one light over here, then one light over here, and then your camera, let's assume your camera is over here, right? One light over here is your key light. That's going to be your main light for the entire scene. But that key light is going to cause like harsh shadows coming from like your main character or like your main asset, right? So we can then add in like a fill light to kind of negate like how harsh these like shadows are going to be. And we're kind of going to like temper. We're kind of going to temper the lighting a bit out. And then this one in the back, it's called the rim light, because that will help your assets stand out especially when it comes to like dark environments, right? Especially here when it becomes like really unrecognizable where like the gun and the background begins or ends. Like you kind of want to avoid that as best as you can. You can do that by like adding a light behind it that will cast like a little edge on like all the surfaces of your model, right? And it's going to help it stand out. Obviously, ideally, the quickest fix to this is not having a black background. That helps a lot as well. Oh, Liz, no, you forgot it too. Okay, so for Guillaume and Liz, what do you think is going to be the most effective way of letting you know that you need to re-tag, right? Because in the Discord, we have the announcement channel where I basically lay out like how to enter and all that kind of stuff. Are you both tagged by that as well? Or is that something that just gets like overlooked? Or is it too complex the way that I laid it out as well? I just want to make sure that like when Whip Wednesday is happening, that like the rules are clear, it's easy to participate, and then yeah. Oh, you get the notification at night when you're sleeping. Okay. And then, okay, let's see what's happening. I could not tag with the phone UI. Okay, let me. I don't have my phone here. You should be able to tag your work with like the phone UI. I'm pretty sure that I've done that before. Oh. Maybe if possible, a second reminder a couple of hours before the stream. Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That is not a bad idea. Oh, where's my marker? What I might do is, instead of having the reminder go out like in the morning, I could have the reminder go out like 2 hours before the stream or something like that. So that people still have like a little bit of time to post and tag their work, and then like everyone should be set up. Okay. I'll just note it down as like second reminder. Because that is definitely something that I want to improve upon as well. No, thank you for the suggestion as well. And I'll have a look at if you can change it in like the phone UI as well. But I think you should. I'm not too sure. I barely use Discord on my phone, so I might be wrong here. But yeah, last thing, I think honestly, this is pretty much what I'm gonna keep it at for now. Let me just quickly see. There is one question that I'm gonna throw out here. Oh my god, I nearly threw my marker on my tablet. And this is a question for Wilson, right? Is this high poly to low poly? The reason why I ask is because I think I have my doubts, because the high poly looks like just really close to the low poly. Obviously, I don't have like any wireframes to kind of base that on, right? Let's see. How does the handle look in the back? Okay. They look the same. So the reason why I bring this up is because I kind of want to help you prepare. I kind of want to help you prepare for the actual game workflow, right? Where if you want to do like a revolver for this, like in a game, then you would have to build like a high poly model and then bake all the information down onto a low poly model. And I just want to make sure that you're using that pipeline. If not, that would be like a good thing to look into. But yeah, I'll post the notes in your individual thread, and then yeah, if you have any more questions, Wilson, feel free to question me about it as well. Cool. Awesome. Let's switch it back. Hudson is asking, when will I release a printed copy of your book? We actually talked about that in the beginning of the stream. I'm not gonna put like a date on that because that is gonna take a lot of time. So I'm not sure. Currently, I am 50% of the way through to just like spell checking all the individual pages though. So roughly my plan is I'm gonna do all the pages spell checking now. That's what I'm currently working on. then the next step would be that I print it all out and I basically go through it with a fine-tooth comb, decide which pages that I'm going to be cutting because some of it is just not relevant, and then also decide like which ones I have to rewrite and all that stuff too. Will it be signed? I'm honestly, I mean, if I'm gonna be printing the books and all that kind of stuff, yeah, I can probably sign it too. But yeah, that feels weird. But okay, let's do it. This actually brings me back to like that print over there. The artist behind it, she was like super nice. And she asked me like, "Oh, do you want my signature on it?" And I was like, because I just didn't expect her to ask that question, and I was like, yeah, sure, yeah, yeah. And it was just a weird thing because I'm assuming that she gets like that question like a lot, right? Because if you buy like a print from someone, like it makes sense that you kind of want to have like a signature on there somehow, right? But to me, it was like, oh, yeah, sure, let's do it, you know? I like this weird little thing. Yeah. Was cool, you know, so, well, if people are doing that, I might as well sign my own book, I guess. Oh god, that sounded so weird to say that. Yeah, I'm honestly really excited about it though. Like I said before, like I'm not really trying to make this like a commercial success or anything like that. I just want to have like the book out there, and that if I want, I can get it printed, and then I can just like yeah, show it to people and like help students out there with like just a bunch of tips. That would be cool. Okay, people, it's getting pretty late. This was like pretty long session. I feel like the AI went on for like quite a while. So yeah, but it was a really nice chat though. It was really lovely to sit here with all of you. You can still hear me like sniffling and snottering just a little bit, so I'm just gonna have a nice rest, like Hudson is saying, and I wish you all the same thing too. Last little reminder, next week we will not have a live stream here on YouTube. It will actually be a takeover session where Adam Denker, like one of our mentors, is actually gonna do a Discord section, and he's basically gonna do like a little boutique little Discord Whip Wednesday session with all of you as well. So it's going to be the same format, same kind of like thing. So if you still want to get your work critiqued, feel free to use the tag, but it's going to be exclusive to the Discord as well. Nope, it's open for everyone. Everyone that has access to like the Discord, right? If you have to be a member, but you can get in. You don't have to be like a workshop access member. Just to let you know that we'll send out like a notification as well. But yeah, everyone that has the ability to participate in Whip Wednesday will be able to participate in that one. So nothing is changing there. We're just doing like an in-house session with Adam Denker. Okay. Notifications out of the way. Thank you all so much for being here. If you enjoyed it, like the stream, make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff to help the YouTube algorithm out. And yeah, have a nice night, people. Bye-bye.